All right, what are the Young Turks? We got an awesome show for you. All right, here's the situation. I got some good news, I got some bad news. Are you surprised? No. But you know what? The good news is good. The good news is good. Okay, all right. We're just having a little bit of fun. Okay. Some Democratic action that worked. Huh, well, look at that. And then do I have more on Shirley Short? But of course I do. Okay, two Fox News personalities are going to go in completely different ways, and they're both going to amuse me. One's a good guy, one's a bad guy. You're not going to be surprised by which is which. Okay, if we have time later, Rush Limbaugh gets crazy. Oh, by the way, the story, Sam Cedars on the program today. Come on, this program is too good. The story that pissed me off the most is in the second hour, though. Somebody brought up on rape charges because they slept with the wrong race. Okay, no, it's not in the U.S., okay? I'm going to tell you which country did that, and... All right, well, let's save that anger for the second hour. Okay, so, but don't dampen my good mood. I'm in a good mood, all right? So, look, let's get started with the good news. A little while ago, the Congress and, of course, the President signed into law, passed the legislation changing some of the laws on credit card companies. Now, it wasn't perfect. It got implemented a little later, and it didn't have some provisions we would have liked. You know how the usual drill goes, but I liked it overall. And, and I like to say all the time, because I think it's true, that I'm perfectly willing to compromise if we can get the core of a bill that's pretty good, right? And I thought that the credit card bill was along those lines. So now we have some of the results. Well, it turns out that the credit card companies are having a little bit of trouble because they're used to ripping you off, and they make a tremendous amount of money doing that. So some of the things that the bill curtailed was they can't jack up your rates, your interest rates, for no reason. That seems like a pretty good idea, right? And of course, they're crying. They're like, oh, why are you grabbing me? Why are you grabbing me? I love the days when I could just jack up people's rates, even though they did absolutely nothing wrong. All right, so they're crying about that. And then the second thing is they can't charge you exorbitant rates if you're late or you went over your limit, et cetera. They can charge you rates. They can charge you fees, right? But not exorbitant fees. It makes sense. A little bit of consumer protection, right? Now, so what has been the reaction to this bill? They're trying to find other ways to charge you. Now, look, that makes sense too. Don't get me wrong. They're a private company. They're going to try to make as much money as possible. Now, some are complaining about that, but I think that's not really that legitimate a criticism. So let me explain. So, for example, the credit card companies are saying, hey, you know what, now we're going to encourage people to use their credit cards more because those swipe fees, every time you use your credit card, they charge the vendor, that restaurant that you went to or whatever it might be, about 2%, right? So they want to encourage you to use your card more so they can make more money off that. That's capitalism, baby. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, it's your choice whether you want to or you don't want to. Some people say, oh, but that encourages people to use credit card too much. Look, they are human beings. They got a mind. They can make up their own mind. I don't have a problem with that. And then secondly, credit card companies some of them are now trying to charge yearly fees. Now that's really annoying. I don't like it when they do it to me, but I don't see anything wrong with that either. Here's what I mean by that. That's their choice. If I don't like that Chase is doing that, maybe I go to Citibank or I go to another Discover. There's competition, and there's real competition. It's not like the insurance companies. And lo and behold, they tried doing that, and then a lot of them had to scale it back because there were so many cards that didn't charge you a yearly fee, and people started flocking to those. Oof, that's capitalism, baby. There's no problem with that. As long as we've got fair rules and nobody's ripping off consumers and nobody's taking taxpayer money, everything is fine. And look, if it turns out that the industry needs to charge that and then they get to that point, they do provide a service, right? And we like that service. I'm not outraged by that, right? Now, but here's a funny little thing about what happened as well. They say that the problem is the good consumers, the ones that pay their credit card debts back. So now they had massive trouble before because they lent out to everybody, gave the riskiest credit, and those people defaulted, and now so they got stuck with that bill, right? Hey, that's also capitalism, right? So, but now they're like, damn it, these guys that keep paying off their debt, bunch of deadbeats. Here, I got a great quote for you. This guy's from Curtis Arnold from cardratings.com. He says the only true deadbeat customer is someone who has a card and never uses it. Okay, get out there and start using the card. And now the credit card companies don't want people with ratings above 800. That's the gold standard, right? Not a big deal. My credit rating happens to be above 800. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying, look, I practice what I preach, right? I talk about fiscal discipline, and I'm not like the Republicans. I actually have it, right? Let's hope that doesn't get screwed up. Anyway, so now I'm apparently a bad customer. So they're going to try to rough talk me and run me out, right? So, but look, that's silly and it's goofy and I'm amused by it. But, you know, I get their motivation too. But then they shouldn't come crying later to taxpayers or to anybody else, oh, we only had bad credit risks and can we dump that off on you, right? No, you're the ones that you're now saying that those are the guys you want. So don't get surprised if you crash. Final thing on this is, look, it's also possible that the credit card company should consider, hey, you know what? Under these normal rules of engagement, we're not going to make as much money as we used to when we were robbing folks. And that's life in the big city. Doesn't mean you're bankrupt. It doesn't mean you can't function. It means you're not going to make as much of a usurious profit as you used to. Get used to it. These are fair rules. Enjoy the competition. Hey, look, final analysis, good job to the Democrats. Now, it's not whether the economy explodes or not. It's not a macro issue. It's not a huge issue in that sense, but it helps a lot of people in their daily lives. That's something that the Democrats are supposed to do, and in this case, they delivered. Credit where credit is due. Am I not merciful? J.R. Jackson, am I not merciful? Thank you. That's what I thought. I can't at least get an amen? Can I get a preach it?
I'll give you a.
Hey, all right, I'll take it as a beginning. It's a beginning. All right, another good thing today, more good news. The unemployment benefits bill has totally passed. Now, it passed the Senate before, now it passed the House. And it went from 26 weeks of coverage, and it had expired for a lot of people on June 2nd. But they're going to get, for 5 million people, but they're going to get back pay for the times that they could have gotten unemployment benefits but didn't because it was blocked. That's a good thing. And by the way, you know how the Republicans talk about, oh, they just retire off that unemployment, these bums, right? You know how much they get? They get $300 a week. Now, look, $300 a week, it can really help you, you know? If you got a family of 4, for example, are you thinking, oh, the government gave me $300 a week, I don't have to do any work? I would imagine most Americans would not think that way, okay? But just to give you some perspective on that. But, here's the interesting part, right? The final vote was 272 to 152 when the final tally was taken in the House. And remember how all this started, right? Jim Bunning first came out a couple of months ago and did his damn best to try to block it all on his own. And at the time, the Republicans thought, oh, this is a terrible idea. And they said, oh, Jim Bunning, oh, he's crazy, man. He ain't got nothing to do with us. No, I got no interest in that. But then all of a sudden, they warmed to the idea. And they're like, yeah, maybe Bunning's got a good point. And then they all rallied, and then they said, yeah, screw the unemployed, et cetera. But here's the critical part. Obama fought back on this one, okay? So hence more good news. And he said, and the Democrats did too, they thought it was a winning issue. And they came out and said, look at these guys. You know, they want to make the permanent tax cuts for the wealthy. That costs so much more money, and they don't want to pay for it, right? But they're going to come and cut the unemployment benefits for people who desperately need it for the economy they crashed. Thank you very much. And guess what happened? Guess what happened when Obama took it strong? They won. But here's the interesting part, and why I'm telling this whole story. Yeah, with the Democrats alone in the House, they would have won. But guess what happened? 31 House Republicans crossed the aisle and voted with the Democrats. Huh. You know what Obama got when he went strong? He got bipartisanship. What he thought was unimaginable before. Couldn't get it done. Tried, he gave him, he begged, he pleaded, he got no votes. He took out a whooping stick and hit him upside the head with it. And every time a Republican went on TV over the last week Over the last 10 days or so, the Candy Crowleys and the David Gregorys took their talking points and said, oh, somebody in power said this, so I can repeat it. Okay, now they say that you want tax cuts for the rich, but you don't want it for the unemployed. And after they got their ass handed to them for 10 straight days, all of a sudden they crossed the aisle and voted with the Democrats. Now, who told you that was going to happen? Who? You know who. You're looking at it. All right, put me aside. Who cares? Okay, but the bottom line is, Obama, can you please learn from your success and from your failures? You see, when you cave into Fox News as you did with Shirley Sherrod, that turns out to be disastrous. When you fight back against conservatives and Republicans, that turns out to be awesome. And the real way to get bipartisanship. By the way, go back to, if you remember, go back to our archives. Check out my long speeches about how Bush got bipartisanship. You remember what I told you? He got bipartisanship on the tax cuts, on certainly on Iraq, and the list goes on and on. How did he do it? He beat up the Democrats, and the Democrats got scared. It turns out the Republicans are also politicians. That if you beat them pretty good, in the immortal words of one of our callers from a long time ago,
supposed to do, you take them out of the office and hit them with a stick a couple times. They will do.
It turns out they will do. They will do. Put some thought behind it. All right, good news again today. Oh, one last note on that. You know, on a substantive note, I would say that 99 weeks is enough. Now, that's incredibly subjective, and what the hell does enough mean? But giving unemployment benefits for 99 weeks because of a tremendous recession we're going through, I think makes sense, or I get the logic of it. As I've always told you on the substance of it, I was a little torn. But if you go beyond 99 weeks, it becomes too permanent and too indefinite, in my opinion. So at that point, that's of course nearly 2 years. We've got to find another solution. So, and yes, this does add up, and we do have to be fiscally responsible. So this is going to cost $34 billion. Now, you know, I point out the hypocrisy of the Republicans. They want to make it add $678 billion to our deficit by extending the tax cuts, Bush's tax cuts, for the top 2% of the country. So that's 20 times as large. But nonetheless, $34 billion is $34 billion. And I get the reason for it, but in my subjective opinion, 99 weeks is enough, and I would not extend it beyond that. You know, of course, we're going to have to see where we are 70 some odd weeks from now. But that would be my initial thought on that, because there is a limit. So now, number two is, I keep telling you the Republicans are the ones that want to extend the Bush tax cuts to the top 2% of the country. That would cost the deficit $678 billion. I just can't say that enough, right? It's an overwhelming number. So who joined them today? Of course, a Democratic senator. Of course, someone they could consider a conservative or a centrist, and a fiscal hawk. Kent Conrad. He's the guy who was supposed to be the most, conservative fiscally, and that cares the most about balancing the budget in the Democratic Party. So when push comes to shove, and we've got these trillions of dollars in debt, and now over $1 trillion in deficits, what does Ken Conrad want to do? He wants to add $678 billion to our deficit. And get a load of this. He says, well, we should probably make an exception for pay-go, meaning we should not pay as we go for that. We don't have to pay for it. So healthcare, you got to pay for it. You got to make sure. Unemployment, you got to pay for it, right? Everything, education, pay for it. And the tax cuts for the top 2%? No. Just who cares? It's a mere $678 billion. A war? No, of course you don't have to pay for a war. Just borrow that from China. So, I was silly enough to at one point to think that Kent Conrad really meant what he said, that he actually did care about the budget. And I remember giving him a lot of credit for that on this program many years ago, right? It turns out, of course, I was kidding myself. I didn't know. But now through experience, you learn. Turns out Kent Conrad was joking with us all along. He was messing with us. He was just like a Republican. Oh yeah, rich people, give me money. Oh, it's going to be so easy to win in my state, my small state, no problem at all. Oh, now I'll turn around and pretend, I care about fiscal discipline. Let's cut Social Security. Let's cut Medicare. What else do we need to cut? I'm a Democrat. look, maybe these days you are a Democrat. Maybe that's the definition of a Democrat these days, that kind of duplicity. But you certainly ain't no progressive, and you're certainly not on my side. So, Kent Conrad, I got a couple words for you, and they go like this. Get! No interest in Kent Conrad. What an unbelievable hypocrite. So let's not balance the budget as long as the rich get paid. All right, now that's one of my pieces of bad news. Hey, I got more bad news for you. I told you I had both. So we did the health care reform. Don't worry, mission accomplished. And now I said the main problem with that bill, I was against that bill, was because it didn't address the core of the problem, which is no real competition. If you don't have real competition, the insurance companies, the private insurance companies can really do whatever they want, right? So get a load of this wonderful trick that they've decided to do, right? Remember how the Republicans were saying, oh, Obamacare is going to get between you and your doctor. This bureaucracy and government takeover, etc. Well, it turns out, of course, Obamacare didn't do any of that. In fact, they didn't limit private insurance at all. And so what's happening now? Private insurance is saying, we're going to get between you and your doctor. There are these new plans that they're forcing on folks saying you now can only choose from a very limited number of doctors. And if your present doctor is not one of them, sad day, we're going to either yank your private insurance or you got to pay full cost, hence no insurance, to go to that doctor. And was it the government that did that? No, it was private insurance. And why did they do that? Because we let them. Because we didn't really fix the system. Now, but there's an extra twist to this story. So they say, but don't worry, that's going to save you 15% on your premiums. Okay? And if you choose to go with that option, hey, I'm saving you money. What they didn't tell you is they just jacked your premiums by 35%. So you see this trick? Pay me 35% more. But if you don't go to your doctor and I limit your doctor to some quack I found over here who's going to charge me very little, okay, that part is speculation. But my guess is they're going to care what those doctors charge, right? So are you going to get the best doctors? Don't worry, private insurance says you will. But anyway, so you can only go to these limited doctors, but I'll let you save 15%. Wait a minute, I'm still out at least 20% in that equation. Yeah, that's right. And I can't go to my doctor. Yeah, that's right. And who got in between me and my doctor and raised my rates? Private insurance. Why? Because the so-called Obamacare left them completely in charge. And why can they do that with impunity? Because they don't have real competition. It's not real capitalism. So, now you're looking over your head on the aircraft carrier and looking at that mission accomplished sign. Does it still look like the mission is accomplished? Or perhaps we were onto something in saying that that bill was weak, so weak that it really didn't fix anything, that it wasn't real change? All right, I got more where that came from. I'm going to take a break here. Let you catch your breath. Let's come back. Let's do some funny Shirley Sherrod stuff. Oh, Fox News with the back pedals. Oh, it's great. Young Turks.
I am.
All right, back on TYT here. So, Netroots Nation is going on right now, and that's a gathering of online progressives. It's a very large convention. NBC's Mark Murray was there, and he noticed that people were complaining that Obama has not been as progressive as they had hoped. And that's a very legitimate complaint, of course, if you ask me. But Mark says, no, we've got it wrong. He says, quote, here's something to consider. It's the country, not the system, that's stacked against liberals and progressives. The real problem is that the country is not liberal, it's center-right. Now, at first, I was mad at him, okay? Because I know it's wrong, and I've heard it a million times. And then I thought, you know what? It's not his fault. It's conventional wisdom. Everybody in Washington, every political reporter thinks, this is a center-right country, this is a center-right country, this is a center-right country, because that's all they've ever heard, right? And then, of course, they have that one poll, which is enormously misleading, which I'm going to tell you about right now, that they hang their hat on. Conservatives throw this poll at them. They say, all right, when they did a poll and they asked people, are you liberal or conservative? In 2008, 25% said liberal and 36% said conservative. That's it. There's more conservatives in the country than liberals. It's super obvious. Except it's not at all obvious because liberal has become a dirty word. Because for 20, 30 years, Rush Limbaugh, Fox News, we said liberal, liberal. Whereas conservatives, a proud word, I'm a proud conservative. I'll give you a perfect example of it. When Republicans run for office, they talk about who's more conservative, and they brag, no, I'm more conservative. When Democrats run for office, does anybody say, no, I'm more liberal? Oh, no, I'm the more liberal candidate? No. They, in fact, oftentimes do the exact opposite. No, no, I'm a centrist. I'm a moderate. I'm reasonable. I'm not a wild-eyed liberal, right? Because liberals become a dirty word. So when you get to the real issues, though, there are an enormous number of polls, and let's see what they come out with. Is it a progressive or is it a conservative country? Well, Media Matters and Campaign for America's Future. Now, they're progressive groups, okay? But what they did was they took polls from non-progressive groups, totally nonpartisan groups, American National Election Studies, the General Social Survey, and Gallup polls. And they collected the data to see, hey, which way does the country go? So, on the role of government, 69% of Americans believe the government should care for those who can't care for themselves. That is the central liberal philosophy. And Rush Limbaugh will tell you that is not what he's in favor of. 69% of the country believes that. Twice as many people want, quote, the government to provide many more services, even if it means an increase in spending, as want government to provide fewer services in order to reduce spending. So that goes 43% to 20%. So again, central liberal or conservative position. Do you want the government to spend more money for services or no, not less services and spend less? 2-1, the liberal position wins. Now, how about the economy? 77% of Americans think that Congress should increase the minimum wage. 66% believe that, quote, upper income people pay too little in taxes. 53% feel the Bush administration's tax cuts have failed because they have increased the deficit and caused cuts in government programs. Once again, liberal, liberal, liberal. And significantly so, 77%, 66%, etc. But that's not what you hear in the media, right? And these people who are answering these questions, they might not even think that they are liberal because they got immersed with all that propaganda too and say, oh, I'm not a liberal. Oh, but do I want the government to spend more money? Of course, we should care for each other. What's the matter with you? You're not a decent human being? Right? And where should we get the money? Well, the upper income brackets have more money, so we should raise taxes on them. But they don't think they're a liberal, right? But in reality, of course, these are all liberal positions. I'm just getting warmed up. Let me give you a couple more, okay? Because it's on almost every single issue. Social issues. 61% of Americans support embryonic stem cell research. 62% want to protect Roe versus Wade. Clear victories, again, for liberal positions. On security, 60% feel the federal government should do more about restricting the kinds of guns that people can purchase. 60%? I thought 100% of the country was pro-guns. What happened? Because they're not reporting it right. See, it's not a matter of do we take away your guns. When you ask, hey, should we have some restrictions on guns? 60% of the country go, yeah, of course we should. That's a liberal position. All right, the environment. 75% of Americans would be willing to pay more for electricity if it were generated by renewable sources to help reduce global warming. 79% want higher emission standards for automobiles. Liberal, liberal. Overwhelmingly so. Energy. 52% of Americans believe, quote, the best way for the U.S. to reduce its reliance on foreign oil is to have the government invest in alternative energy sources. 68% say that the public thinks that U.S. energy policy is better solved by conservation, not more production. In other words, 68% don't drill, baby, drill, do more conservation. Liberal, okay? But if you use the word, oh, no, I'm not a liberal. Although every one of my positions is liberal. How about health care? 69% of Americans think it is a responsibility of the federal government to make sure all Americans have access to health coverage. 69%. 76% find access to health care more important than maintaining, for example, Bush's tax cuts. And 3 in 5 would be willing to have their own taxes increased to achieve universal coverage. And as we saw as the health care debate, and these are all studies from the last set of years, okay? So it's not just today's studies. It encompasses a longer period of time. And as we saw in the health care debate, every single poll said we want a public option. We want the government to give us an option. And yet those were all ignored. When you go issue by issue, America is definitively liberal, progressive, whatever you want to call it. Except when you call it liberal, the one poll says, no, we're not liberals. Because Rush Limbaugh and Fox News made it a dirty word. But we've got to drill this through the mainstream media's head. Because we are not a center-right country. When it comes to every issue, we are a center-left country. All right. I'm just trying to do my part. Now, one more story for you guys here. We have, it was a massive story out of the Washington Post throughout this week about the massive growth of the United States national intelligence system, okay? Now, again, this goes to a conservative liberal issue, right? And let me just throw some numbers at you. There's been 1,271 government organizations and 1,931 private companies that work on programs related to counterterrorism, homeland security, and intelligence in about 10,000 locations throughout the United States. These are gigantic numbers, and we're spending an untold sums of money. And in fact, of course, the article explains every year we added another $34 billion to the intelligence budget, and another $25 million, and another $30 billion, and it goes on, and it keeps piling up and piling up. For example, the new stuff that's been added, together they occupy the equivalent of almost 3 Pentagons or 22 U.S. Capitol buildings in about 17 million square feet of space. We've created this giant government bureaucracy. And what is the conservative reaction to this? They should hate this, right? They hate big government, especially because they're snooping in on us. Here, let me give you that incredibly important fact. The National Security Agency is right now intercepting and storing 1.7 billion emails, phone calls, and other types of communications of American citizens. Now, you might say, hey, you know what? That's a lot of emails and phone calls, and they're not going to be able to listen to all that. First of all, they got a lot of people they've added and a lot of buildings, right? But of course they can't listen to all of it. But they have it. So if they want to zero in on you, well, let's pull up J.R. Jackson's records here and see what kind of emails he's sent and what kind of phone calls he's got. So look, the Washington Post did a great job of explaining in detail what's happening here. These guys are bragging about how big their building's information storage area is. Some of them are the size of 4 football fields. One of the advisors says, now it's become a thing of like, whose penis is bigger than the other guy's? Oh yeah, I got a bigger information storage place. It's 5 football fields. And it's become a way to compete. And we can't cut any of their budgets because now it's become a turf war. So everybody says, oh, no, I need that money. I need every bit of that money. In fact, I need more money. And I need to make a bigger government bureaucracy. That doesn't work. Now, a lot of times it doesn't. The Christmas Day bomber got on the plane because while all these guys were doing all this stuff to collect all that money, they missed the one thing they needed to have. Because, again, it's so much information, they're having trouble coordinating it, right? And you know what they'll do? They'll add more buildings and more personnel to coordinate it, which is, by the way, not what they'll do. That's exactly what they did do after the Christmas Day bomber. Now, if you're a conservative, you should hate that government expansion. You should hate the waste involved in overspending that's bloating our budget. You should also hate that they are collecting your information. I mean, you want to talk about big government? You're worried about Obamacare? You're worried about what Obama's doing and how he's intruding in your lives? And by the way, he's doing this too, so you should be worried about this. But although you never talk about this, because Bush started it. If you really cared, you'd have the same position as Glenn Greenwald does, as I do, as a lot of progressives do, which is it was unacceptable when Bush did it. It's unacceptable when Obama does it. They should not be collecting our emails and phone calls. And part of the reason they are is because we've become this giant government bureaucracy. So, look, one, I think conservatives are hypocrites on this. When they got this Washington Post story, they said, no, it's defense spending, it's intelligence spending. We need every nickel of it. But number two, I want you to understand we're not hypocrites about it, okay? We are not just stereotypical liberal or progressive or whatever you want to characterize it as. We think if it makes sense, let's have the government do it. If it doesn't, let's not have the government do it. We don't want to get bombed either, okay? Nobody wants to get bombed. But this isn't helping us not get bombed. It's just wasting a lot of our money. All right. Young Turks.
The clock's ticking, I just count the hours. Stop tripping, I'm tripping off the past.
Welcome back to TYT. Anna Kasparian and Cenk Uygur with you.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. What are we up to, Anna?
Up to a lot of things. We have so many great stories. Do you want to get to it?
Yeah, I do. Remember, this is the hour where I'm bringing the rage over that so-called rape story.
Oh, you're bringing rage?
Oh, are you kidding me?
Oh, I can't wait. It'll be great.
Okay.
It's a great story. Not a great occurrence, but
it's a disastrous story,
it's a
right?
disastrous story, but it's an interesting one.
Yes.
But first, I want to start with Aisha Griffin. She is a Wisconsin woman who is running for the downtown Milwaukee seat in the state assembly, and on the ballot, she is able to describe herself in 5 words or less. All right.
Right. She's an independent, so
She's
you got to know
independent.
what she's about, right?
Exactly.
So, I think she has a fairly clear description.
She does have a clear description. It is not the white man's bitch.
Well, you know where she's coming from, isn't it? Right. So now this becomes an issue.
Right. So there's a ton of controversy. It turns out that the state government's accountability board barred the wording of her description.
Yes.
So she is not able to describe herself as not the white man's bitch.
So the question that goes before the people that would decide this in Wisconsin is this a pejorative, for example? So because they can ban words that are offensive, pejorative, insults, racial, etc., right? Offensive. And so she makes the claim that, first of all, no, I'm being literal. A bitch is a female dog that rolls over, and I'm not going to roll over. And okay, that's an interesting point, right? And a lot of the people who voted, in fact, she lost because she needed 4 votes, but one of the people that were supposed to be there wasn't there, and she actually got 3 out of the 5 votes of the people deciding, right? So it's interesting. She almost won, right? And so they say, well, look, she's got a fair point. It's not really an insult, and she doesn't mean it as an insult. I'm not sure I'm buying that, but okay. And then they also say that it's not racial. I don't buy that at all. What do you mean it's not racial? She says, I'm not the white man's bitch. What part of that isn't racial? Of course it is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, am I missing something?
No, you're not. I agree. It is racial. Why is white man in there?
Yeah.
That makes it racial.
Right. I mean, if she had said, I'm not the man's bitch, right?
Then it would be sexist.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
It would.
No, but you can make an argument, right? Anybody could be the man, right? But the white man's, come on.
Right.
So now the question is, now that gives them a reason to say no, and I get the reason. But would you say no, right? So if you were on that, one of the people deciding that case, would you let her put that on the ballot or not? And I'm a little torn on that.
I am not torn at all.
Okay, fascinating.
Not even in the slightest bit. Look, I say that yes, she should be able to describe herself that way. Do I think it's a smart idea? Absolutely not. Do I think it's refreshing that there's someone who's running for something and being as honest as possible? Absolutely. All right. Do I think that it's going to work against her? Of course it is. People are going to see that on the ballot. There's no way they're going to vote for her. So she's not doing herself any favors. And I don't believe in violating her free speech by telling her, no, you can't describe yourself that way. She's not doing any harm to a human being.
Yeah, I disagree with you on a couple of counts. One, I think it might really help her. It depends on who's voting, right? I mean, I'd be tempted to vote for her. Okay. I mean, I'd be like, oh, whoa, all right, this one's not playing, right? Like you said, it grabs your attention, right? And it lets you know where she's coming from. And now you might agree or disagree with that, but it doesn't lack clarity, right? So it might help. But somebody rose up in the audience and made a decent point. I mean, what if she was a white candidate and said, I'm not the black man's bitch, right? I mean, which black man is she referring to? Is she referring to Obama? Is she referring in general? That's a little... And if that, isn't the opposite also too controversial and too offensive?
Let me just say that if the tables were turned and it was a white woman who said, I'm not the black man's bitch or whatever, I would still say, no, you can't tell her not to describe herself that way. It's her freedom of speech. If she wants to do it, then do it. I mean, in the United States, it's racist to say things like that, right? But there's no part of the Constitution that bars you from saying things like that.
Well, I'll give you this. It also would not lack clarity. If somebody I'm not the black man's bitch, I know I probably wouldn't vote for that person. But, it lets people decide.
And I think
suppose.
that clarity is refreshing, to be honest with you.
All right. Yeah, we got to go to Justice Jackson here. The TYT Supreme Court is a little split. What do you think?
I don't think I can let either one.
You're not going to
Because
let
the thing
either
is, well, as far as that point that the person in the audience made about what if it said I'm not the black man, that wouldn't make any sense, first of all. So, I mean,
I know, but
that's the, I mean, I was trying to think of the equivalent, because that's what I was thinking, too. I said, what if it's reversed? That's how we can figure it out that it's fine, because we're so used to black folks being oppressed in this country that we're like, oh, that's fine. She can say that because people have been the white man's bitch before. So, but, I mean, maybe the equivalent is I'm not going to, I don't know, whatever talking point there could be. I'm not going to bow down to these uppity black folks. I don't know what's possible.
Right.
But
I won't listen to any Negroes. Right? I mean, you're going to let that go? I mean, Anna's got a decent point. Freedom of speech, then you know whether to vote for her or not.
And yeah, and just to be clear again, they're being as honest as possible, and that allows the voter to make a good decision.
So this is on the ballot, though, right?
Yeah, it's on the
I
ballot.
mean, if it's their
independent.
if it's their campaign, if it's their flyers, yeah, that's their freedom of speech to do whatever they want when they're campaigning. When it's on this ballot, that's this organization, that's the country, this is the state, this is what's overseeing
It's official,
it.
right?
Yeah,
I got you. So you're voting no on her. She's voting yes. We're still split. I'm still not even sure I have a decision. We got to go to the Chief Justice here.
I will have to say if she would have put it, she's not the brown man's bitch, then it would have been a controversy. No, but I'd have to say I'm also torn. I like Anna's point that it's her freedom and she's only hurting herself. But at the same time, I just feel it has to be some sense of professionalism.
Right.
That I'd want her to kind of be more towards that. So if she's going to hold that kind of office, then...
Now, he does it every time. The Chief Justice swings me every time. We're not like the real Supreme Court where they never change their minds. Like, I'm open to suggestions. Yeah, he swung me. There's a certain amount of professionalism you want, right, on that ballot. And JR is right. You want to put it on your campaign flyers. What's her name?
Aisha Griffin.
Aisha Griffin, not the white man's bitch. Okay? Now we're having a conversation. That God bless your heart. That's freedom of speech. So, but I'm going to vote no on this and say she shouldn't be allowed to vote, put it on the ballot. You want to do a TYT poll on it?
No, but okay.
You know why? Because when we do a TYT poll, Anna has to do more work.
Yeah, no, I have to do more work. But I do like hearing everyone's opinion, so that sways me into the direction of, sure, let's do a TYT poll.
See, are we not the most open-minded people in America? TYT poll, we'll see what the American people have to say.
Sounds good.
Go.
All right, we have people throwing babies in India. All right, there is a ritual.
We have it.
We do. It's a 500-year-old ritual in Western India where villagers throw babies from the temple roof. We have a video of this. It looks kind of scary. It looks dangerous. I have thoughts on it.
The thoughts are obvious. It looks disastrous.
It does look disastrous.
Let's watch.
Thousands of Indian parents queue at the Muslim shrine in Solapur to take part in a bizarre ancient ritual. And be warned, it's not for the faint-hearted. Offering your infant child to a tower of flowers isn't too shocking, but how about this?
Jesus, Lord
The faithful
mercy.
at Solapur have been throwing their infant children off this 15-metre high tower for 500 years. The youngsters are caught in a white sheet, and organisers claim there have never been any accidents or injuries. In fact, the ritual is believed to make children grow up healthy and strong.
Doubt it.
And Solapur isn't
Biden.
the only place where the ceremony takes place. Muslims and Hindus hold baby-dropping rituals in various parts of the country. Some Indians have questioned why the authorities don't intervene, but while there are those against the practice, there are clearly many in favour of it. Sonia Legg, Reuters.
I like Charles Barkley over there, whose job is to catch all the babies. Like, they're bouncing, he snatches them, and he's like, go. All right, now, look, they have their culture. I hope it's not hurting anyone. I'm not sure if I was the authorities that I would intervene, right? That's a really touchy cultural issue, right? Now, somebody come to me and say, hey, you know, how about we throw Prometheus off a building and see how it turns out? I say, how about you step the fuck back? Okay.
What if they say it's gonna give him long life and healthy?
I see. Oh, it's going to make him strong. You know, how about we try making him strong by feeding him like good food and, you know, stuff like that, and we don't throw him off a building like that. look, it's the same thing I think whenever they say, oh no, this trained killer Rottweiler has never killed anyone before, right? Oh, we've been doing this for 500 years and it's never hurt a baby before. By the way, I don't believe that for a
Neither
second.
do I. The first thing I thought about when they were throwing that baby, because when it bounces back up, you could see their neck bending back. That's going to definitely hurt their necks and their backs. What are they doing? I think it's crazy.
Son, we live in a world that has...
Oops, wrong one. No, it's absolutely crazy. Look, when you got and those kids are pretty small. When you got a kid that small, you got to make sure, even when you pick it up, that you support its neck, right? So now you got to throw it on the neck and go, Washington!
Their bones haven't said yet. Those babies are fine.
Okay, like, look, 99 out of 100 times, they're going to be fine. One time, Charles is going to miss, right? He's going to go, boom, Washington, boom, right? And you tell me they did this 500 years, they never missed a baby? Okay, here's the number of babies they've missed. 3,872, okay? And then not all of them died, of course, but some of them cracked their skulls, etc. That's my guess, okay? And now they got it down to a science. You know, that's a factory over there, right? They're dropping babies like every other minute there. But back in the day, 323 years ago, how do you think they caught him? Oh, yeah, with the sheet, we hope, with like 4 people under there. And then, you know, Ahmed and Mahmoud screwed it up, and next thing you know. No.
Bad idea.
No. And what I meant to say is, if somebody comes with me, I say,
Get!
not going to happen. All right.
All right, let's get to the story that enraged you. A Palestinian man has been convicted of raping a Jewish woman in Israel, even though they had consensual sex. Now, why did the court decide that this is considered rape? Because it turns out that when he met the woman, he lied and said that he was also Jewish, even though in reality he's Muslim.
You know, I'll be honest with you, and maybe this shows my bias a little bit. When I first read the headline, Arab guilty of rape after consensual sex with Jew, I thought it was in a Muslim country. I thought it was in an Arab country, and I was going to go on my rant against fundamentalist Islam. Like, what do you care if she's Jewish or she's not Jewish? Now you're going to go, what are you going to lash the guy, etc.? And I was already, you know, ready to go when I read the headline. But it turns out it's not in an Arab country, it's in Israel, right?
Yes.
And they're doing it for the exact opposite reason, which leaves me just as enraged, okay? So, and you're supposed to be a democracy, you're supposed to be a modern country, you're supposed to be a developed country, please, okay? So what you're basically saying is, well, if you tell somebody you're a different race, well, obviously they wouldn't have slept with you if she knew you were a dirty Arab. Well, then, so we're going to call that rape, right? Imagine, and think about it from an American perspective, okay? Imagine in this country, a woman comes in the court and says, oh, I thought this guy was white. Come to find out he's black. So I'm going to call him rape. I'm going to call it rape because he lied to me and didn't tell me that he was a black man. Okay, now how would we feel about that? Okay, we wouldn't feel pretty good, right? But apparently in Israel, hunky-dory. This is the court saying, yeah, it was rape. They're going to send this guy to jail for 18 months.
18 months, yes. This is what the reasoning was behind it. Okay, one of the judges released a statement, and he said, "Well, you know, in hindsight, it wasn't really consensual sex because had the Jewish woman known that he is a Muslim, she wouldn't have had sex with him. So that's why it's considered rape."
Yeah. By the way, how sure are you? Maybe she was horny. Maybe she wanted it real bad. Okay, because it's consensual, 100% consensual, right? But come to find out later that she doesn't like that he's a dirty Muslim, right? Well, she liked it at the time, though, it appears, right? And by the way, couldn't you do this for every single, not every single, but a lot of cases of sex? Oh, I thought he was rich. Turns out he's poor. Rape. Yeah, he lied to me. Oh, I thought I was sleeping with a rich man. No, so it turns out it's not. Okay, I thought he was 12 inches. Come to find out, not even close. Rape. Okay, I thought he was going to give me 7 orgasms, but it come to find out he didn't give me any. Rape. Okay. I can go on and on. This is absolutely atrocious. And if you're an Israeli, you have to be absolutely embarrassed over this.
If it's that dirty, I mean, and how can she tell from looking at him, right? They're so different, right? If you can look at the guy and don't know that he's not Israeli, then something's pretty close here. So it was pretty much damn the same thing, apparently. She can't tell the difference.
Yeah, she couldn't tell the difference at all. She was hunky-dory when she thought he was Jewish.
Right.
right?
And he had told her that he's, you know, a single guy who's looking for a serious relationship. It seems like they dated for a while and they had sex and everything. Everything was great. And then she happens to find out, oh, wait a minute, he's not Jewish. And all of a sudden, everything changes.
Oh, by the way, back when I was single, would I have lied to you to have sex with you under those circumstances? Hell yes. Okay?
Rapist.
Oh, yeah, come. So if somebody says to me, and I've had people who were racist against Muslims, and I had sex with them. Okay? Sad day for you. Okay? So you say, oh, no, I don't like Muslims. You're not Muslim, are you? Oh, no, I'm not, honey. Don't worry. Okay? And then later, hey, guess what? It turns out I was. What are you going to do about it now? Okay? Nothing. So unless, of course, you're in Israel. Now, by the way, give credit to Gideon Levy, a liberal Israeli commentator. He said, hey, you know what? Imagine if the shoe's on the other foot. A Muslim woman comes and says, hey, you know what? I had sex with this Jewish guy who's an Israeli citizen inside Israel, and we had a great time, but now I think it's rape because I didn't know he was a dirty Jew, right? Now, do you think the Israeli court says rape?
Absolutely not.
As Gideon says, it is inconceivable that they would call that rape. So what happened? I thought you were a democracy. I thought you were fair to everybody. If they don't overturn this on appeal and this guy actually goes to jail, it's a terrible embarrassment for Israel. I told you I was mad about it. Mm-hmm. All right. Let me cool down. Let's take a little bit of a break. We got a crazy lawsuit. That's also in the news today. All right? Come back.